Every so often, the future doesn't just knock, it kicks the door down. And that's exactly what happened in late December. Over just a few days, the world of robotics just exploded. A whole series of breakthroughs dropped so fast it felt like we skipped a few chapters. So let's talk about the week humanoid robots stopped being sci-fi and started getting very, very real.
And look, this wasn't just one company having a good day. We're talking about completely different teams in China, in the US, in factories and online demos, all at once. They started showing off abilities that, honestly, we all thought were still years away. It was this incredible wave of progress, and it's a huge signal that something fundamental is changing.
And that's the key, right? This isn't just about cool tech demos anymore. This is the real deal starting to unfold. And it brings up a question that, frankly, we all need to start asking ourselves, and asking it seriously. Are we ready for what happens next? All right, let's dive into our first story. It starts with a task that, for you and me, seems pretty simple. But for a robot, it's been an absolute nightmare for decades. All it takes is a needle, some thread, and a machine that just did something many experts thought was basically impossible. Yep, you heard that right. On December 22nd, a humanoid robot from a company called Tar Robotics sat down on a stage live, threaded a needle, and then used both of its hands to stitch a logo onto a piece of fabric. I mean, think about that. This isn't stacking boxes or welding a car door. This is delicate, complex, two-handed work that requires an incredible amount of dexterity. So to really get why this is such a mind-blowing achievement, you have to understand something about robots. They're amazing with rigid, predictable stuff, right? Metal parts, plastic blocks, but soft materials like thread and fabric? They're a robot's worst enemy. They stretch, they twist, they do all sorts of unpredictable things that have always just completely stumped machines. And this demo? It just smashed right through that barrier. The secret sauce here isn't just better programming for one specific task. It's a demonstration of a much bigger idea called Embodied Intelligence. The easiest way to think about it is this. Instead of just following a strict set of instructions, the robot is actually learning general physical skills, like balance, coordination, how much pressure to apply. And then it can use those skills to tackle totally new situations it's never seen before. So how did they pull it off? Well, Tar Robotics has this approach they call the AI Physics Trinity. It's a pretty clever loop. First, they collect a ton of real-world data from their robots just doing stuff. Then, they feed all that data into a big AI model to train it. And finally, and this is the crucial part, they deploy those newly learned skills right back onto the physical robots. It creates this amazing continuous learning cycle that closes the gap between the digital brain and the physical world. Okay, so while that was happening, at almost the exact same time, another massive breakthrough was going down in the US. This time, we're shifting gears from pure physical skill to another huge challenge, having a natural conversation with a human. So check this out. The CEO of Figure AI drops this video where he's just chatting with his new robot. He asks it questions about itself, and it answers correctly, but then he does something really cool. He asks it to look at a basket of shirts and pick out the right ones. The robot understood the context of the conversation and then immediately acted on it in the physical world. That's a huge deal. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? Here's the catch. While the robot's brain was clearly working, it understood everything perfectly, there was this awkward 2 to 3 second pause before every single answer. And this demo is so fascinating because it shows both a giant leap forward in AI comprehension and the very next hurdle we have to get over, making conversations feel instant. Someone online just absolutely nailed it with a comment. They said, "Feels like dial-up internet." And that is perfect. It perfectly captures that feeling of lag. The intelligence is there, the connection is made, but the timing just feels slow. It's a well-known problem in the industry, actually, called speech latency. But hey, don't let that conversational lag fool you. The robot itself, the Figure 03, is a beast of a machine, and a major step up. It's lighter, it's got this softer exterior, which makes it way safer to have around people. Plus, it can run for 5 hours and walk at a pretty brisk pace. So the underlying hardware is becoming seriously practical and capable. Okay, this is probably the most important part of the whole story. We are finally moving beyond just cool demos. This technology is now being put to work, proving its value in the real world everywhere, from consumer products you can buy online to the floor of a massive factory. If you want to see this shift in action, just look at Vita Dynamics. They launched their new AI-powered robot dog, and get this, they sold over 1,000 of them in the first 52 minutes. That's not hype. That's real, actual consumer demand for advanced AI products, with sales numbers that look more like a new iPhone launch than a niche robot. At the same time, on the industrial side of things, something even bigger was happening. CATL, which is the world's largest manufacturer of EV batteries, just casually announced that it's now running a huge production line with humanoid robots. The robot, which they've named Shamo, took over a really dangerous job of connecting high-voltage plugs. And when you look at the results, it's just staggering. It completely eliminated the safety risk for human workers, it handled nearly 3 times the workload, and it did the job with a success rate of over 99%. And to understand why this is such a monumental deal, you have to look at the scale we're talking about. CATL isn't some small startup playing around. They control over 38% of the entire global EV battery market. This means the undisputed world leader in one of the most critical industries on the planet is now betting its future on humanoid robots.
And that brings us to the final piece of this incredible puzzle, and it involves a robot that you've almost certainly seen before. After years and years of viral videos showing it doing backflips and parkour, one of the world's most iconic humanoids is finally clocking in for a real job.
We are, of course, talking about Atlas from Boston Dynamics. Man, this robot has had quite a journey, from a wild experiment in a lab to a full-blown social media superstar. But now it's entering a whole new phase. After being bought by Hyundai, it's been quietly running pilot programs in their EV plan, and it's all leading up to a live public demo in 2026. And make no mistake, this is not a publicity stunt. Hyundai is putting serious money behind this vision. We're talking a planned investment of $34 billion in AI and robotics. They're even building a factory in the US with the goal of cranking out 30,000 robots a year. So, when you put all these pieces together, the embroidery, the awkward conversation, the factory jobs, the debut of Atlas, it becomes crystal clear. That 1 week in December wasn't just a few random, isolated events. It was a connected wave of progress, a cascade of breakthroughs in dexterity, in human interaction, and in real-world deployment, all cresting at the exact same time.
The era of the humanoid robot is no longer just around the corner. It's here, right now. They are walking out of the research labs and into our world. This isn't science fiction anymore, folks, and that leaves us with the biggest, most important question of all. Now that they've finally arrived, what happens next?